Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is your Thursday, May 3rd edition of the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. As always, beside me, regulars Jeremy McKenzie and Russell Parker.
One thing, I gotta give a shout out to my sister today. It's her birthday today, so happy birthday, sis.
Of course, happy birthday to his sister. Now, I do want to mention that a lot of people, especially here in Richmond County, are getting geared up for Plaza Jam, which is going to be happening here in just about an hour. In the meantime and in between time, we've got all of your local and national sports news. Everything that's going on is right here for you to listen to and watch. So we're going to jump right into it, beginning with the NFL draft recap. Of course, that just happened this past week after our last show ended, and plenty to talk about. First of all, let's talk about Baker Mayfield going first. What do you think about this?
I can truly say when Cleveland made this pick, I was very shocked at this pick because I was thinking they would go after Saquon Barkley, which I had on my mock draft going number one. But I think Cleveland is getting a steal out of this pick because we got a guy who's already proven, can come in and start right away and learn, or can learn from Tyrod Taylor for a couple of years and pretty much learn the system, learn the offense, and then when his time to come in, he'll pretty much show the way.
Oh, come on now. You got to think, though. This is the number one guy in college football we're talking about. Number one draft pick. It makes sense to go hand in hand.
And don't forget, he's a Heisman Trophy winner.
Exactly.
Heisman Trophy winner, yes. I will go the other way, though, real quick. He's only 6'1".
Yes.
That's short for a quarterback. Now, obviously, we've seen shorter quarterbacks like Drew Brees, like Russell Wilson, who've been able to...
Or Doug Flutie.
Yeah, going way back with it. Who've been able to excel in the NFL.
Yes.
But for every one of those, there's 10 guys the same size that didn't do well.
Yes.
There's also the thought that maybe Baker has some maturity issues. Of course, he's only 19 years old, maybe 20. He'll be able to work those out.
Yes.
Here's the thing, though. It's the number one pick. Is this a typical Cleveland pick? Because we talked about some other quarterbacks that Cleveland could have taken.
Yeah.
I mean, is this a scenario where...
This is just a typical number one pick, in my opinion.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Is this something... It seems like Cleveland has number one pick every year. They've been through so many quarterbacks. Is this the one that sticks? Is kind of what I'm getting at.
I'm thinking this is probably... I think this is where Cleveland... It's their time to shine. I think they finally get the quarterback they wanted after all this time. Because I remember when they picked... remember when Tim Couch went number one in 99.
Yeah, it started all this.
And then it went all the way down with Johnny Manziel getting drafted a few years ago. But I think this is where Baker Mayfield could come in and learn and pretty much can show what he can do.
Yeah, and I'm not saying the kid's not talented. Obviously, he is. I mean,
Yes.
he won a Heisman. I also think that coming from Oklahoma in the Big 12, where everybody throws for 4,000 yards, maybe inflated his stats a little bit. He's not going to be able to get away with that in Cleveland, especially with Joe Thomas not protecting him anymore. People forget that he retired this offseason, so that's going to be a big cog in front of him that he's missing.
And also, you got to look at Tyrod Taylor got signed in free agency along with Drew Staten for a 2-year deal. So he got to look at a situation where they can battle up for the number 2 quarterback spot in camp, or he can go the Baker Mayfield go to number 3 and learn this and hold the clipboard for a year or two, and then they could throw him in there.
All right, this guy has a lot of energy too, and that's going to definitely come in and affect the Cleveland team overall.
He does, and he's kind of got that alpha male, if you will, in him, to where I think immediately, as soon as he starts, he's going to become the leader, which is what you need out of your quarterback, especially for a downtrodden franchise like the Browns. Mm-hmm. Now, moving forward, like you said, they've signed Tyrod Taylor, who as right now is going to be the starter. Of course, a lot of things can change between now and the first game of the season. Does Tyrod Taylor finish the season as the starting quarterback, or does Baker end up coming in his rookie season?
I think Baker Mayfield's going to come in and do some things in order to get the team going, possibly win a few games. And if they push for a playoff push, hey, put them in there.
Anything can happen. What do you think, Russell?
I think they'll have him play in the preseason to start things off, to see how he is, to get him settled in and see how he does. Maybe have a quarterback battle between the two.
Right.
But I think Mayfield will be the winner of that battle and become the starting quarterback at the beginning of the season.
Maybe see a scenario in the preseason where he takes reps with the number one offense a little bit, and of course Tyrod would do the same. I absolutely can see that. Now, moving on, you talked about Saquon Barkley, a guy that you thought Cleveland would take number one overall. I think we've said it several times. We all thought that Barkley was pretty much the best prospect in this draft. Of course, went number 2 to the Giants. Now, you mentioned he's going to be pairing up with Jonathan Stewart, of course, former Carolina Panther. You see big things for Barkley this year?
I believe this is going to be that Saquon Barkley is going to be an opportunity, be in a situation where take a lot of pressure off Eli Manning, who is pretty much going to retire after this year, and pretty much the offensive line was pretty solid last year. in New York, and I can see them do a 1-2 punch combo like Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams started out back in 2008, and I think that's going to take a lot of pressure off Odell Beckham Jr. and a lot of other receivers and the tight end, and where they can come in, the defense can do their thing.
Now you bring up Beckham. We talked about before. His future kind of seems up in the air with the Giants right
Yes.
now. You also mentioned obviously Eli's getting up there. Retirement's probably going to be in his future sooner rather than later. Russell, Saquon Barkley, 1,000-yard season to take some of that pressure off of the uncertainty of Beckham and Eli getting older.
I think so. I think that they could definitely make something work there with him.
And don't forget, Wayne Gallman's that back there too from Clemson.
Oh yeah, that's
Kind
right.
of a sleeper, I think, but he had a few good games last year. I remember having to pick him up in fantasy a couple times, and he did pretty well. Now, of course, everybody around here, big Panther fans. You are, of course, a big Carolina Panthers fan.
You better
so
know it. Keep pounding.
I want to get your opinion. How'd the Panthers do? What you think?
I truly believe. I think when Carolina picked DJ Moore out of Maryland, wide receiver, I could truly say, honestly, I didn't like the pick at all because I was looking at we was going to get Calvin Ridley, or we could have went after offensive line with Will Hernandez, or we could have went after Brian Price, because there's been so many holes that we needed to get, especially starting on the offensive line, because due to Ryan Khalil's going to retire, and then Norwood going to Jacksonville in free agency. But I think this pick was probably going to be a steal because even Steve Smith made a comment on it after the pick. Ain't nobody really been a replacement since I left, but I think now they finally found my replacement.
Well, so far Smith's been right, and they needed a wide receiver.
Yes.
I mean we all know that, sending Kelvin Benjamin up to Buffalo. Russell, just real quick, what do you think? Was wide receiver the right pick, or do you think they should have gone for offensive line?
Well, they can definitely need some new weapons up in there to help out Cam Newton. I know he's not my favorite quarterback, but I know he's pretty good at what he does. And they need some guys to help him out and get the ball downfield.
Now, we put up an RO Sports Show poll on Facebook, which is something we're going to try to start doing every week, asking folks, how we thought the Panthers did in their draft. And the reason I bring this up is you mentioned Cam Newton, and we had said, did the Panthers have a good draft? Yes, or do you think they should have done better? And if you voted no, who do you think they should have drafted? It was in the majority was yes, they had a good draft, but I think the one comment on there was they didn't draft a quarterback, so they didn't get any better. Of course, we know you're.
I kind of agree with that statement.
Yeah, I was gonna say we know you're a big Cam fan. Russell and I not so much, but that's neither here nor there. Now, speaking of quarterbacks, a couple of quick things to touch on here as far as the NFL draft. The Baltimore Ravens drafted Lamar Jackson, who was the former Heisman Trophy winner for the Louisville Cardinals. We had mentioned maybe a month ago, something like that there had been some talk about him switching to wide receiver. The Ravens drafted him as a quarterback. Does he see the field any this year, or is it still Joe Flacco's spot?
I think it's right now it's Joe Flacco's spot, but it also could be Joe Flacco's spot to lose as well, because since the Super Bowl's victory he had, it's like his career has been going downhill due to injuries and inconsistency. And I can see Baltimore brought Lamar Jackson in a situation where, hey, you can tell Flacco, you got to stay healthy in order to do what you need to do, or we're going to have to start bringing some guys in for pretty much competition in training camp.
And I don't know if Lamar Jackson will potentially be a number one starting quarterback, but Joe Flacco makes a lot of money.
Yes.
And he hasn't really been producing for the amount of money that they're paying him. So, Russell, is there a chance that, this is Flacco's last year to prove it, and that's why they drafted Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, you don't draft a position if you're not going to use that. So
Right.
I think they're going to use him and take Flacco out of the equation here soon. Maybe not this year. Maybe it might be next year. Maybe halfway through the season. Yeah, but Flacco's going to be out very soon.
Let me ask you this, Jeremy. Is there a chance we might see Lamar Jackson line up at wide receiver or some kind of H-back position?
I truly believe once preseason start, we can see him lining up in different positions, see how well he does. But as season progresses, I think they might use Lamar Jackson as a quarterback, wide receiver, hybrid person.
All right. Now, I asked you guys before we started taping, I wanted to get your opinions on who had the best draft and who had the worst draft. So let's start with you, Jeremy. Who do you have as having the best draft so far?
The best draft I could truly say who won was my NFC South rival is the Atlanta Falcons, who picked up Calvin Ridley from Alabama, Roll Tide, because I truly believe he come into a good situation and making Matty Ice look very, very good, because you're looking at one side, Julio Jones, and then you got Mohamed Sanu, And then you got Calvin Ridley from Alabama, who pretty much could come in, start in the slot. I could surely see Matty Ice can have another MVP season because he is going to dominate offensively.
I agree. Now, who do you think had the worst draft?
The worst draft I could truly say was, and I don't like this team, really I don't, is the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, I said it. I don't like Dallas. I truly believe that Dallas should have picked up a wide receiver due to Dez Bryant's unexpected release. But at the same time, but the thing about it, you brought in a guy from Bowie State and Linton Vander Itch, who probably could come in and start right away with Anthony Hitchens and Sean Lee already there. But you should have started offensively to try to get a receiver to give Dak Prescott some kind of weapons or something.
Yeah. I think them taking linebacker number 1 was kind of a redundant pick because they already have linebackers. I agree. They should have gone for something they could have immediately filled.
Yeah.
What do you think, Russell? Best draft?
Well, my best draft, I think the one who did the best is Miami, the Dolphins. And I say that because they got Minkah Fitzpatrick, who is a beast.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't wait to see him in the NFL. He's going to be a monster to deal with. I cannot wait to see him propel this Miami team to greatness. Worst, the Eagles. Why would you get rid of your first round pick? I don't understand that. I know they just won Super Bowl, but they got to plan out the future. This is why the Patriots continue to be dominant, because they can plan out their future because of Tom Brady. But regardless, Eagles not going to be very good if they're going to continue to trade up like that.
And, you mentioned Alabama. I've got an assignment for you for next week. I want to find out how many Alabama players after this draft are in the NFL right now, because I know it's at least 20, right? It's got to be up there. And that's just in the last...
I think they drafted 12 for this round.
I was going to say, that's just in the last 2 or 3 years. It's probably at least 20. My team having the best draft, I'm going with the Denver Broncos. Now, Bradley Chubb, who we said was probably the best defensive player in this draft, ended up falling to 5th, who's going to be playing on that defense that was already very good. So now you got him as one of your defensive ends. You still got Von Miller. A pick that I think that people forgot about was Josie Jewell, who is a linebacker from Iowa. This kid led the nation in tackles last year, total tackles. You know who he reminds me of? Luke Kuechly. And I could see him coming out and being all-pro like Luke Kuechly is in this defense. So I think between that, and then, of course, they also picked up Cortland Sutton, the wide receiver from SMU, who'll be also a speedster they can put on the outside with Thomas on one side. And who's their other wide receiver?
Emmanuel Sanders.
So kind of the same situation as Atlanta. Now, as far as the worst draft, I'm going to go with the Seattle Seahawks. And the reason I say this is Rashad Penny, who was the San Diego State's running back, had a great college career. I really feel like Seattle reached for him in the first round. They probably could have waited and got him or someone similar. And I also don't think the Seahawks did enough to shore up that aging defense. Of course, they lost Sherman. Earl Thompson seems to be getting hurt more often. And it's just they're basically just getting older. And at certain points, you have to start refilling these spots. And I just really don't feel like Seattle did that very well. And one other quick thing I wanted to mention, Harold Landry from Boston College, another monster defensive end who in our mock draft last week we actually figured would go at least in the top 20. This guy lasted all the way to the 9th pick in the 2nd round, ended up going to the Tennessee Titans. I think that's a really good value pick for them. And then finally, I don't know if you guys realize this, but the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted wide receiver James Washington and quarterback Mason Rudolph, both from Oklahoma State. These two guys last year were one of the most prolific passers and catchers in all of the NCAA. Do you think this might be the future for the Steelers?
Yes, you got to plan for the future because you look at Big B. He's getting up in age and he can't last. He barely got 2 years left in him, but always plan for the future. And then you're looking at a wide receiver in James Washington. Well, always good that always stack up on your wide receivers because you got Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah.
And then he could come in and play in the slot.
Now, obviously they got Antonio Brown, who's one of, if not the best, arguably wide receiver. But if Mason Rudolph becomes Big Ben's heir apparent, Russell, wouldn't it always be better to have him paired up with a guy that he's comfortable with, like his number 1 receiver he had in college?
I think so, but I think you also got to think that the sport's changing all the time. Your teams are always changing, so you got to be in touch with your new teammates when they come on. So the future is going to have to. You got to plan for your future, as Jeremy said, and that's going to have to happen. Yeah,
and of course Le'Veon Bell. We don't know what's going to happen with that. That's obviously a big part of their offense. So picking up some of these later round guys. We see a lot of times these late round picks end up being your starters.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, and for instance, Tom Brady is number one,
exactly.
Example. What do you go, 199th, and now he's
In the
like
sixth
all-time
pick.
greatest quarterback.
Yes.
So you just never know who, what kind of gems you're going to find in the draft, and sometimes the first round pick is a bust, and sometimes the sixth round pick is a Hall of Famer. You just never really know.
That's right.
It's kind of a crapshoot. But that's going to do it for our NFL draft recap. Of course, as we move further into the summer, they'll start doing OTAs and summer training and all that stuff. And, of course, the NFL season will be here before we know it. But we'll get to that later on in the summer. When we come back after commercial, we're going to get right back into the NBA playoffs. Of course, first rounds are done. We're going to talk about those and what kind of matchups we've got moving forward. So all that and more when we come back from the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics.
Rockingham Farm Supply in downtown Rockingham, at the corner of 220 and Green Street's a great place to stop by and have some fellowship and fun. Pick up your dog food, seed, even chicks for your farm, a little bit of everything, and a great selection of zero-turn lawnmowers and other lawn care products. Stop by and visit the local family-friendly atmosphere at Rockingham Farm Supply. Again, that's Rockingham Farm Supply, at the corner of 220 and Green Street in downtown Rockingham.
At Richmond Community College, we prepare you for a high-skill, high-paying career in a variety of fields. From business to education, engineering, utilities, healthcare, criminal justice, information technology, and human services. At Richmond Community College, we can save you thousands of dollars on tuition through our university transfer programs that provide a seamless transition to universities and colleges throughout North Carolina. At Richmond Community College, we are always developing new courses and programs in response to the communities we serve. We offer day, evening, and online courses, and you can now complete 5 curriculum programs entirely online. At Richmond Community College, we believe in helping you prepare for a better life. Richmond Community College. Local college, big impact.
Exit Realty Platinum in Rockingham has listed one of the most beautiful homes in Richmond County. Located in Rockingham on Ledbetter Lake, the home features 4 bedrooms with bamboo floors and a kitchen featuring stainless steel appliances and granite countertops, and a master bedroom that overlooks Ledbetter Lake, along with a spacious tile shower and the attached master bathroom. The open living space leads to the back deck with a perfect view of Ledbetter Lake, and the property features its own boat dock. Want to see this beautiful home? Call Nicole Hayden with Exit Realty Platinum, your source for homes in Richmond and Moore counties.
My name is Jim Leach, and we have been using the Tim Hayden Construction Company for the last several years.
My name is Dave Owens and my wife Beth. We had some damage here at our place in Knollwood Village.
January 2nd, our house flooded upstairs coming through to the first floor.
Tim has responded very quickly with his team of people.
Our repairs went extremely well.
Tim made a very difficult situation much easier for us.
And welcome back to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. And it's time to get into the NBA playoffs. Of course, we're now in the second round. We've whittled it down to a few more teams. Yeah. Well, we're going to be talking about the NBA playoffs until June, because I feel like, since half the league gets in, I think it takes like literally 2 months for them to play the playoffs. But it gives us plenty of stuff to talk about. So, obviously, the biggest news out of the first round, at least in my opinion, maybe your guys' opinion, was how much trouble the Indiana Pacers gave LeBron and the Cleveland Cavaliers. This one went to 7 games. I don't know that anybody really expected that to happen. And it took everything that LeBron had in Game 7, scoring 45 points, in order for them to win by 5. So think about it. If he just scored 39 points, LeBron would be sitting at home right now wondering where he's going next year. So what happened? I mean, is it LeBron doesn't have enough help? Is Indiana that good? I mean, what's the deal?
I think even despite Indiana loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers, I think Indiana sent a message, not only to Cleveland, to the whole NBA for next season. And they pretty much could tell you better watch out for next season. We might have been down, but we're going to come back even stronger and better. And I think Cleveland, where I see in a situation where, like you said, Matt, I see Cleveland probably need a little help, pretty much take some pressure off of LeBron, because I see like Kevin Love is a non-factor either.
Yeah.
And then I think the Isaiah Thomas trade with the Kyrie Irving, I think that came a buzz, what not have you, which that kind of put Isaiah in a situation where he didn't really pan out. So he's in LA right now playing 6-man. So I think it's going to come down to LeBron gonna have to put this team on his shoulders in order to go back to the NBA Finals.
Which it seems like is every year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think? Is that the case? Is it LeBron or bust again?
I mean, I'm looking at what happened here. 4-3 as they finished up their series, and it's amazing that everybody puts LeBron on this high pedestal, and he shows that in his games with Cleveland because he's actually carried them pretty much the last game. That's not looking good for Cleveland if only one player has to carry it, and especially for LeBron, who probably will be going somewhere else now after this. He's probably embarrassed that he had to do something like that when he doesn't have good players, and he'll probably look somewhere else next year.
Yeah, and you think about LeBron's 33, which isn't old, but for the NBA, that's getting up there. You got to think about how many miles he's put on his legs with all the playoff games that he's been through. I think he played every game this year, or at least some parts of every game. So, he's getting up there. He can't carry a team like this forever. Yeah, exactly.
No.
Which is another reason why I think he's going to go to Philly next year. But that's neither.
Come on.
We'll get into that at a later point. But I do want to say this. You're talking about the Pacers. Victor Oladipo was part of that trade with OKC that sent Paul George to Oklahoma City. And people thought, well, the Pacers are giving up for this year or the next couple of years. Oladipo played for Indiana for the Hoosiers. So that was kind of a match made in heaven. Do you think that played into it? I mean, he's home. He's comfortable.
Yeah, because, if you can show off what you can do at home, give all you got at home.
And I agree. I think Indiana is going to be a team to reckon with here in the next few years.
Yes.
But let me ask you guys this. Right now, Toronto and Cleveland are matched up. And we're going to get into these here in just a minute. But right now, Toronto's down. Cleveland's already won a game, so they're up 1-0. And by the way, that game's going to be starting pretty much right now. I think it's either ESPN
like a few minutes from now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, of course, stick here and then tune over to that when we get done. But with that being said, even with Cleveland up 1-0, where's the end of the line? Is it a championship? Is it Eastern Conference championship? Do they end up losing to Toronto? What do you think?
I truly believe with Cleveland, if Cleveland really want to get back to where they need to be, they really going to have to step a game up a notch and beat Toronto. But don't forget, Toronto got fresh legs, a couple of all-stars in DeRozan and Vita Villacious, where his last name.
Yeah, Jonas Lucius. Plus you got Kyle Lowry there.
And Kyle Lowry there, but I think this is where it's going to be a Game 7 series here again, and this is where LeBron really got something to prove.
And I agree. I think it's also going to be a 7-game series, which brings me to my next point. At what point is LeBron going to run out of gas? I mean, where do you think? How far do you think they get?
Well, this game here that they just played could have gone either way. They only won it by 1 point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, LeBron's going to have to figure out what he can do. But, I don't think he's going to have enough to get through 7 games. And then maybe they might win it in the end. But I don't know.
And I think another big difference this year from years past is Cleveland was a 3 seed behind Toronto and Boston. Usually we see Cleveland in the 1 or 2 spot, or when he was with Miami in the 1 or 2 spot. Of course, they ended up playing number 6 team, the Pacers, as we know. Now, I mean, maybe they're the underdog for a change. And I'm not so sure that LeBron's real comfortable with that. He's not used to being the underdog, so to speak, because it seems like right now, and you mentioned Kevin Love doesn't really seem like he's doing anything. J.R. Smith doesn't seem like he's helping out any.
And Toronto, they have to, they realize what the weapon is, and it's James. And they're going to have to, all they got to do is keep him at bay and work the rest of the team, and that'd be fine.
That's what I was about to say. It's going to be LeBron versus 5. So if I'm Toronto, I'm putting 3 guys on LeBron on every play, and I'm making the other guys beat me, right? I mean, wouldn't that be a sound strategy? I would think so, too. Now, we mentioned Paul George. Of course, he went over to OKC this year. Obviously, they lost out in the first round to the Utah Jazz.
That's very shocking.
Which, it was. And it was kind of an experiment because you already had Westbrook there. Of course, KD left. We already know about that.
Yeah.
But you brought in Paul George III, Paul George, and then you also brought in Carmelo. So people thought they might have a little bit of a dynasty thing, a big 3, if you will. They bowed out early. So what happens now in OKC? Because, Paul George, what's his status?
I truly write down for Oklahoma City Thunder. I think the situation is, Russell Westbrook's already there.
He's there. He's
the franchise
signed for $200 million or something. Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
I can see Carmelo in a situation where he can be asked for a buyout of his contract, where he could be unrestricted free agent, go somewhere else and compete for a ring. Now, this is where Paul George comes into play. I call him PG-13.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is where he in the prime of his career, he wants to win now.
Yeah.
And I can see him in a situation where if LeBron stays in Cleveland, I can see him pair him up with LeBron there, takes a little pressure off of him. And then if you go to the Western Conference, I can see a team like the LA Lakers can pretty much can come in and pretty much form that tandem with the Balls and the Isaiah Thomases and all of them. And even I say if a dark horse come into play, I can see him in New Orleans pair with DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis.
That would be interesting. Russell, do you think that if PG does move on, do you think he's going to wait and see what LeBron does first?
That's exactly what I was saying. Thinking that he will wait for what James will do and go somewhere. He might, wherever James goes, he is going to try and go there too.
Yeah, because obviously, even though LeBron's getting up there, he's still LeBron. He's
But
still.
you know, he's not the only one that's going to try and follow James. I guarantee there's other players out there who will do the same thing. So it's going to be tough to get in there.
You're right, and we're going to talk about another one of those players here in just a minute. And I didn't really tell y'all about this before we started taping. But before we do that, let's get into the upcoming matchups. Now, as we mentioned, the Cavs and the Raptors are pretty much tipping off right now. Cavs are up 1-0. Who you got winning?
I got Cleveland.
In 7?
Cleveland in 7.
All right, what you think, Russell?
I'm gonna go with Toronto.
I'm gonna take Toronto too. I think it's time for LeBron to take a seat
Time
early.
for him to go down.
No. My undefeated streak is still gonna keep going.
Now, I say that because my team that I have picking to win the East are the 76ers. And right now, they're down 1-0 to the Celtics, who, of course, are without Kyrie Irving. Now, I figured, even with them, the Bucks series that they played went to 7. They ended up winning. But still without Kyrie, now up 1-0 over the Sixers. Who you got in this one?
Actually, for this series, I can actually gonna pull a upset for the ages. I think Philly is gonna beat Boston in 5 games.
Okay, you jumping on board with me a little bit? What you got?
I'm going to go with Boston on this one.
Okay, so sticking with Boston being up, of course, they're playing later on tonight. Of course, you know where I'm going with this. I've got to take the Sixers. I've been saying it for a couple of weeks now. I'm going to stick to it. And then the Golden State Warriors. Seems like they're unstoppable when it comes to the playoffs. They are matching up with the Pelicans, who were the only team to sweep in the first round. They swept the Trailblazers 4-0. Now, the Pelicans, it seemed like, would have been well-rested, and they were. But when you run into the Warriors, even without Steph Curry in the first game, and of course he played in the second one, Warriors up 2-0. Is this one over already?
I think truly this is gonna be a sweep with Golden State with New Orleans because I feel like Anthony Davis, even despite putting 20-10 a game, and then you got Drew Holiday there and all of them, and Rajon Rondo, I don't see New Orleans do enough to put away a powerhouse like Golden State.
What do you think?
I think they'll fight as hard as they can, but I don't think the Pelicans can do it. It might get one game out of this series, but that's going to be it.
Yeah, I can see them maybe getting one when they go back to New Orleans, maybe. But other than that, I don't see it going past 5 games.
No.
I would like to see an upset.
And I think I would too, but I think everybody already coming in was anticipating it being Golden State and Houston, and we'll probably end up seeing that before it's all said and done. Now, the other guy that I was mentioning that's probably going to be looking to see what LeBron does is your man Kawhi Leonard, who's kind of had an ongoing saga with your San Antonio Spurs. I don't really know what's happening with him. Now, last week you talked about how the Spurs have been trying to gauge his interest and how much he thinks he wants to come back. I'm going to ask you again this week. Is he staying or is he going?
I truly believe that the way it's going right now with the front office and Coach Pop, I think he has his avenue is I think he's going to explore going somewhere else.
Where do you think that might be? Just take a guess.
Well, you already got a ring, NBA Finals MVP a few years back.
Yeah.
I can see a team. I'm going to put dark horse. I like dark horse people. Mm-hmm. I can see him with a team if he goes to the Eastern Conference. I can see him in Boston.
Right.
And for my Western Conference, I could just see him in an LA Lakers uniform.
Very well could happen. What about you, Russell? I mean, you think he could end up somewhere else?
Yeah, and if I'm gonna try and take a stab at it. If he goes to the Eastern Conference, I might pick somebody like Philadelphia.
Yeah, and
him and Ben Simmons, him and Joel Embiid, that would be a big 3.
And I would stick with an Eastern Conference team for the same reason that I don't think LeBron's going to go west of the Mississippi, because you got to deal with Houston for the next few years. You still got to deal with the Warriors for the next few years at least. So the path to the championship is still easier on the Eastern side. Now, I mean, at this point, the Spurs are, kind of dropping down as far as the hierarchy of the Western Conference. Mm-hmm. I think if Kawhi, who already has a championship, like you said, has a little less to prove than some of these other guys, would want to maybe go to an easier, not easier, but a better situation in order to win another championship. I don't know who that would be. I think Philly would be a good choice. I'd love to see him come to Charlotte. I don't know if he'll be able to do that.
I saw one on Facebook post where they had Kawhi Leonard in a Charlotte uniform.
I'd love to see it. And hopefully maybe they can make that happen once they get the coaching ranks down. They still don't have a coach. And once they do, of course, we'll let everybody know about that. But until that happens, the Kawhi Leonard saga continues. It seems to be a soap opera. So, but that's going to do it for NBA. And when we come back after the break, we're going to talk NASCAR and PGA. So the kind of opposites here. We got some big news As far as NASCAR coming from Russell, he'll tell you all about that. After the break, we'll be right back from the RO Sports Show.
McNair Auto Sales is the place to buy your pre-owned car, truck, or van. To be the best, it takes big selection, friendly staff, and great pricing. We guarantee a no-hassle buying experience, and financing is available right on site. So come see us today. We're located at 1026 East Broad Avenue in Rockingham. And remember, with over 40 years of experience, you know McNair is the name you can trust.
Family Pharmacy is a local pharmacy that's been in business in Rockingham for over 10 years. Located in the Food Lion Shopping Center on US 1 North, we have easy access into the store and a drive-thru for your convenience as well. You can download the official Family Pharmacy app at myfamilypharmacy.com, and we'll help you set it up to text you when your prescription is ready, and you can even set it up to fill your prescriptions when due. Our motto is we'll treat you like family, and it's something we truly mean. We take the same care in filling your prescription that we would take for our own family. Family Pharmacy, we'll treat you like family.
Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts is all about rustic home decor and gifts. You will always find a variety of unique antiques, vintage, and new items in our shop. Come and see our selection of housewarming, new baby, and wedding gifts. For the man in your life, we have many collectibles, Boker knives, and leather. And ladies love the jewelry, purses, candles, hats, and t-shirts. We also offer a 30-day layaway program. Come and experience shopping at Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts.
Hello, I'm Tammy Benson, and this is Nancy Bowling. And we're here to tell you about the wonderful service at hospice and what they have to bring. From the nursing services, to the medical director, to in-home aides, to a chaplain, to bereavement, to everything you can imagine. They were there to take care of it.
I cannot think of how the experience with hospice could have been any better professionally, spiritually.
And welcome back to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Time to hit the track. NASCAR news as usual. Now, first of all, we're in Talladega this past weekend. Who'd you have? Let me start with there. Who did you have winning it?
Well, I had Brad Keselowski winning this because he has the most among active drivers. I think it's at 8. He's 2 away from Dale Earnhardt, who has the most. But yeah, I had him picked, but he unfortunately did not get to finish that race after the big one. But
yeah, we'll talk about that here in a minute. But who did win?
My guy, Joey Logano.
All right, now is this his first win of the season?
It's his first win of the season and first one out of 36 races, I think. It's been over a year since he won his last race. And,
really?
Of course, the last one was taken away from him due to a violation post-race.
So he's been in a drought, so to speak. Okay. All right, so let me ask you this. In regards to Logano, now that he's got a win under his belt, you see him maybe getting a couple more throughout the season?
Well, of course, a win always builds momentum. And, of course, now he's also safe into the playoffs right now. Of course, yesterday they announced that all cars passed their past inspection post-race, so he's good on that, and he'll have that win count to the playoffs later this season. So he's going to be in along Kyle Busch and a few others. But yeah, win definitely carries momentum, and that's obvious. In the past few seasons ago, Logano had like 6 wins overall after carrying a lot of momentum. He won like 3 out of the last 2 in the last couple of years.
Let me ask you this: how old is Logano now?
I think he's like 26 or 27.
Okay, so he's been in NASCAR for a little while, because I remember when he was the up and coming. I think he was a teenager.
I remember he was. I think he was 17 years old out here at Rockingham in the first ARCA race out here, and he dominated. I think he lapped everybody around there one time, and then just won that race.
Yeah, of course, people were at that point were like, well, we've got the next Earnhardt or whoever, coming.
I actually got a story about that. Now, my aunt and I, we were just watching the race trying to pick we didn't know anybody in the crowd, so it was like, well, I'll just pick the 3 car because it looks like Earnhardt or whatever. But that car didn't do good at all, and we were hearing rumors that there was a 71-year-old man driving the first place car, but that didn't be Logano.
Now, you mentioned the big one, and for those of you that don't know, that for some reason Talladega, and I'm going to get your opinion on this, Talladega always has the big wreck, and it always seems to involve at least like 10 cars.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, this happened this year. We watched that video before we came back from the break, and it looked like there were probably 10 or 12 cars involved. What happened there?
Well, Jimmy Johnson who was a veteran driver, he came down, and I believe it might have been Kyle Larson below him, and they just clipped each other, and it caused a huge wreck. And the reason why that always happens like that is because the drivers are always they're always close, and they're doing what they call pack racing, and it's because of restrictor plates, which all keep them about the same speed.
Mm-hmm.
So they're always staying bunched together. And when you got them all like that, it's hard to go anywhere, especially when we're on a bank. And there's not really far. You can't go below the apron, because if you do, you're going to probably spin yourself out by hitting it. So there's really nowhere to go other than maybe just brake and hope the guy behind you doesn't hit you in the back. It's really hard to get through those, and you got to rely on your spotter up in the grandstand to tell you you need to go lower, and you go high, and slow down, or whatever. So there's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah, and it seems like, and I'm sure this is always the case, after the initial wreck, the people behind them, like you said, either have to go high or low. But once the wreck, if it hits up into the wall, then they start coming back down towards the bottom of the track. And at that point, guys don't really. I mean, it's a split-second decision. You have to decide: am I going up top? Am I going down low? And a lot of times, a lot of those guys get caught up in that.
Well, usually it's not their decision that does this. Their spotter up in the stands who's keeping their eye on. They're the one who's directing them, if you will.
Right.
And sometimes a driver may not even listen to them and think he knows what's better, and that could cause it. But even the spotters don't have the best view because there's so much smoke in the air.
Yeah.
So it's really hard, and it's a lot of luck.
And again, it's like I was saying, I mean, it happens so quickly for a guy up in the stands to make that decision, get it into his driver in that half a second, and then the driver to hear that, think about it, do it.
And they're driving 200 plus miles per hour.
It's no wonder the drivers are like, I got this. I'm going to do what I want to do.
Drive down your highway a little bit and just turn your wheel a little bit like that, going about 60, and you're going to feel it. It's going to be difficult to make a split-second decision like that. Try doing it 200 miles per hour.
I can't. I don't know that I've ever gone 200 miles an hour, except in maybe an airplane. So, now, done with Talladega, where are we headed to next?
We are going to Dover, so we're going to get off the super speedway. We're going to a short track. It's kind of similar to Rockingham, actually, just a little bit. It's got a concrete layout, though. It's nothing like that, but concrete all the way around. And they call this a sweeping track. It's the Monster Mile, actually. But the track is always banked no matter where you go to, so cars are always going to slide down when they wreck. It's kind of like a self-cleaning track, if you will. It's a 1 mile track. Jimmy Johnson is usually the guy that wins this race almost every year. It's hard to imagine him not winning it. A couple of guys like Truex and Kyle Busch have been stepping up at this track quite a bit, and they've been able to give off some good races here. So be looking for them to be in the threat to win the race.
And of course, as usual, I'm going to get your prediction for that here in just a minute. But it sounds to me that, first of all, where is Dover's track?
Up in Delaware.
Okay, that's what I thought. I figured it was Dover, Delaware. It sounds to me like there's not much of a straightaway on this track. Is that?
No, it is very short. And of course it's 1 mile, but you're really going up this way and then turning. Yeah. It's like a cereal bowl, if you will, almost like Bristol.
Okay, gotcha. Now, who are you taking?
I might go with Kevin Harvick on this one because he has been stepping up for this track as well, and he actually had a good dominating season a few years ago when he won both races at Dover. So the spring and the fall race, he has dominated both of them. But I think he might have it again this year.
And then real quick, how do you think Logano will do here?
I think he's going to carry that momentum from Talladega and bring it over. Now, he did pretty solid at Richmond, which is a short track as well. Kind of similar. I don't know if he'll do good at this one. I hope he does. Of course, me being a Logano fan. But I see him getting a solid top 10 out of the day.
Okay, well, you heard it here first. Now, we talked about the Super Speedway in Alabama. Talked about the short track in Delaware. Let's talk about a road course right here in North Carolina. Tell us about that.
On an it used to be a 1.5 mile track up there in Charlotte, at Charlotte Motor Speedway. They're going to turn into a road course later this season. Their second race of the year, the Bank of America 500. It will be a road course, and it's the first time that NASCAR's ever done this at Charlotte. Now, Charlotte's always had the capability of doing a road course, but NASCAR's never done it until now. And it's kind of funky how it looks, but it's going to go from the usual start-finish line, and then go into the infield, and they'll loop around there, come back out, back on turn 1 and 2, and then they'll just come all the way back around. There's like a little bus stop on the backstretch. They'll go through that, and then they'll go all the way around back to the infield, not all the way into the infield, but the patch of grass right in front of the front stretch. They'll go kind of into that, then come back out, and that'll be the road course essentially. And it'll be really interesting to see how this race goes. But they had like a test going on, and that was I believe that was Kurt Busch and Paul Menard that were there at test.
And that does sound funky, and I was wondering how the setup was going to be because you've only got so much room to work with inside of that oval, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. But
I hope I described that pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, is it up online? Can people see a picture of it?
There's one up there.
Now, let me ask you this. If this turns out to be successful, do you think this is something they may continue to do in Charlotte in the future?
I think it's already going to be successful because of the fact they're changing it up anyways, and people are getting tired of these 1.5 mile tracks. That covers majority of the season. There's 36 races in the regular season, and more than half of them probably intermediate tracks. Charlotte, I think Talladega has the capability of doing it. Atlanta, Texas, those tracks can do it as well. It's just a matter of getting it together and having it done.
Yeah, because after a while, it kind of seems like cookie cutter tracks is what you're set with. So yeah, I agree. They need to change it up. Now, something that could also affect racing potentially here in North Carolina is ARCA, which is what I would describe as kind of like the minor league, if you will, of NASCAR.
Oh yeah.
But some big news came out this week regarding them. So tell us about that as well.
So NASCAR has acquired ARCA series. Of course, ARCA is, like you said, the step below. They have some successful racing out here at Rockingham, as we mentioned earlier. But they usually run the smaller tracks, unknown. But they also work with NASCAR occasionally. To like this past weekend, they had over at Talladega. They raced before the weekend before NASCAR came there. Well, not the weekend before, but a couple days before the Cup race. They had a great race too. It took forever to finish, but it was a really good, solid race. But yeah, NASCAR now owns ARCA. This has kind of been, people have kind of been thinking this might happen for a while now, because ARCA has kind of been down here and NASCAR has been way up here, and it might just be in NASCAR's best interest to buy that.
Yeah.
So
now, as I mentioned, it could potentially have some effects here in Rockingham. Do you think this could maybe bring racing finally back to Rockingham, at least on a consistent basis?
Well, ARCA is actually kind of one of my favorite series in motorsports apart from NASCAR. And it's because they have been out here to Rockingham, and they have seen the potential that Rockingham can do. And I think NASCAR might see that themselves, but they can't see it with NASCAR. So buying ARCA might allow them to run at Rockingham along with other tracks that are no longer having been ran at before or in the past. I think Rockingham's a good candidate for that, especially have a owner who come in and get racing back out there again.
Yeah, and I know obviously people in Richmond and the surrounding counties that miss NASCAR or just racing in general. Of course, like you said, we've got the track there. Of course, they'd have to do some upkeep on it, maybe do some maybe some like outside things, cut the grass, clean it up a little bit.
And I hear people around here, especially, will sit there and say that there's no way of it coming back. It's done. It's over. But there is a way for it too, if people can just believe in that for one, and not be negative about it, get positive, believe it, and it can happen just on that alone.
Yeah, and even if it is just ARCA, even financially, it would be very much beneficial to Richmond County.
These other racetracks out here, they don't rely on NASCAR to keep them up. They have other events. Charlotte has a auto fair out there every year.
Yeah.
They have, I think they've done a movie premiere out there of the first Cars movie. They did that. And they do all these other events other than racing. And I think Rockingham Speedway can benefit from that themselves by doing other things out there, concerts, having auto fairs similar to Charlotte, all types of things. They could do that. Have other series come out there. I see F1 come out here one day. That'd be amazing.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, they did it at Iowa Speedway, and that's only one. That's a little bit about the same size as ours, so it can happen.
Well, there you go. So yeah, hopefully, potentially maybe we'll get some racing back here in Rockingham. Of course, if that does happen, we'll let you know here on the RS Sports Show and the Richmond Observer as well. Now, moving to the green grass of the PGA tournament. Actually
going
started
from fast to going slow.
Yeah, fast to grass, right? This morning, the PGA Tour is doing the Wells Fargo Championship, which, of course, for the last several years, actually now is played at Quail Hollow Club in Charlotte. So
it's a beautiful course.
Absolutely, it is. So since the big boys are in the state, we figured we'd talk about the PGA Tour. Of course, Tiger is there, and I bring him up obviously because it's Tiger.
Oh yeah.
Second of all, because he's playing in this tournament. He's also playing in the next tournament next week, which is the Players Championship. So again, he's doing back-to-back weeks. And we talked about this before the Masters. Was this going to be beneficial for him? Of course, he ended up placing very high in a couple of those tournaments. Didn't do that great in the Masters, but we're obviously gearing up for the U.S. Open. So again, do you think him playing back-to-back weeks is going to be beneficial? First time around, you said yes, and I said no, and I was completely wrong. So going to stick to it this time?
I'm still going to stick to it. I think that the more you play, the better you can hone your techniques. Learn how to get back in that momentum again. Of course, he's been out of it for a while, and getting back into it. The Masters was just his first challenge,
right?
His first real challenge. And I think with the Players Championship coming up. I think that's going to help him out as well. And I think Charlotte's just kind of preparing him for TPC Sawgrass. So,
well, and I want to say this. I read that Tiger's testing new irons this week in Charlotte. We all know at this point for Tiger, it's all about the big championships, the U.S. Open, the Masters, the Players Championship, or not the Open Championship, and the British Open. So I'm not saying that these tournaments in between aren't important, but I feel like he's taking this opportunity to try out these new irons, see if it's something he might want to use potentially in Shinnecock when they go to the U.S. Open. But I was completely wrong the first go around before the Masters. I said he doesn't need to do this. He's coming off a back surgery. You could very easily re-aggravate that. He didn't. He did very well in a couple of tournaments there. So I'm going to flip over and go with you guys. Y'all said that, like you said, it's good for him to hone in and just practice.
Yeah.
The competition of it's going to be good.
The more you play, the better you get. And I can attest to that because I went out to Lock Haven last week and I actually did one better than I ever did before out there. I think it was like 113. The last one I was there was like 112. But the more you go out there and practice, the better you get.
Yeah, and I found with golf, the more you play, the better you get.
Yep.
The better players you play with, the better you play too. It seems like, and obviously Tiger playing with the rest of those guys.
You can't
only
do that
better.
at a practice course. You got to go out there and play with the big boys.
Yeah, if you're playing out in some course with your buddies, you're not necessarily going to get any better than if you're playing with the big guys, like you said. Now, I want to get your take. Who do you think is going to win this tournament?
Well, I would say Tiger if he was in his prime, but I don't think he's going to get this one done. So I'm probably going to go with Jordan Spieth on this one. He's one of my favorite guys, so I'm going to stick with him.
Yeah, and he's one of those, not really younger guys, but one of the top
won the
guys.
Masters. He
probably should have won the Masters. Another guy, Rory McIlroy, who is one of the younger guys that's coming up. But I'm gonna take a guy that's in that same realm, and Ricky Fowler.
Oh yeah.
Now I got a couple stats here. Of course, he's coming off a runner-up finish at the Masters. This is the site of his first PGA Tour victory back in 2012. So there's some nostalgia there for him, even though 2012 wasn't that long ago. He's still a young guy.
Yeah.
But he's had 2 other top 10 finishes at the Wells Fargo, and he's never missed a cut in 6 appearances. So I think just those stats alone, the history that he has there, he knows the course even in the short amount of time that he's played it, I think are a lot of factors that line up to a victory for Ricky Fowler. So again, we'll have to wait and see, and we'll let you know how that turns out next week.
One thing, I want to give a shout out to Dale Earnhardt Jr. He just became a father this past week. His daughter was born past week, Isla Rose Earnhardt. So we might have another Earnhardt coming up through NASCAR very soon in the future.
Never have enough Earnhardts when it comes to racing, right? And there's still a bunch of them out there. It seems like they just always keep rotating. So, of course, we lost Dale Jr., who retired, and just replaced him with another one. So, but yeah, congratulations to Dale Jr., of course, on the birth of his child. But when we come back after the break, we're going to do like we always do, our Big Impact of the Week presented by Richmond Community College, our official Richmond County Athletes of the Week presented by McNair Auto Sales, and as usual, love it or hate it, So, of course, all that and more when we come back from the RO Sports Show.
It might work for Ed, but it's not working for a big dude like him.
No, it's not. And it's so funny because he tripped and did it first. Okay. Let me get my bearings straight here. Welcome back to the RO Sports Show, always brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Time for the final segment, guys, and as always, we're going to start with Big Impact of the Week, brought to you by Richmond Community College, whose motto is Local College, Big Impact. As usual, Russell, start with you. Big Impact of the Week. Who you got?
Well, I've got the Lady Raider softball team who dominated 71st High School 29-2.
Yeah, they squeaked by.
Yeah.
I would be embarrassed to come on the field.
Especially after what they did to them last week. It's insane. But yeah, my big impact is them go Raiders.
Yeah, 29-2, and like you mentioned, last time before that they won. I think they put 34 runs up on them, which is just ridiculous. So of course, big kudos to them. Who you got, Jeremy? Big impact of the week.
All right, I got congratulations to senior Hannah Millen, who performed a hat trick in a 5-0 victory over Hope County in their conference tournament opener. Again, congratulations.
Yeah, hat tricks hard to come by, even in high school. I mean, that's
very
impressive.
rare.
And of course, to keep the local love going, my big impact of the week, we're going to move to tennis, which we don't talk about as nearly as much as we should. But the doubles combo of Jimmy Cooley and Kevin Campos advanced to the 4A Mideast Regional that's going to be taking place tomorrow at Cary Tennis Park in Cary, North Carolina. They'll be playing at 1 p.m. They received the 4th place doubles bid for the conference, and they defeated rival Scotland to get there.
That's always a good news.
6-3, 3-6, 6-4. So it took them 3 sets, but still, they're moving on, and the Scots are not. So take that. Also keeping the local love going as we always do, the official Richmond County Athletes of the Week presented by McNair Auto Sales. This week our athletes are Chloe Wiggins, who is a junior midfielder on that same Lady Raiders soccer team, and for the male side, Jaleene Baldwin, who is a senior member of the Richmond Raiders track team. He actually finished in the top 5 of the 100-meter dash during the SAC Championship at UNC Pembroke this past Friday. So as always, congratulations to Chloe and Jaleene. And then finally, my personal favorite, love it or hate it. And we're going to go back to the NFL here to start off, guys. Now, we talked a lot about Baker Mayfield at the top of the show. There was a report that came out that his agent had been contacted by the Patriots, and they had actually were interested in maybe moving up into the number 2 spot and taking Baker Mayfield. Love it or hate it?
I hate it because it's too bad for the New England Patriots. You should have did what you had to do in order to get it, but see, Cleveland got them. You lost it.
They didn't do it. What do you think? Love or hate it?
I'm glad they didn't do it because it would have been bad news for them. So I'm going to say I hate it that they didn't. That they decided. Yeah.
I'm going to say hate it because, I mean, we've said this several times. Brady's going to be 41 this year. He can't play forever. They actually drafted Danny Etling, who is a quarterback from LSU, talking about the Patriots. He's not going to – I don't think he's the heir apparent to Brady.
No.
Could be. You never know. I mean, Brady himself, like we said earlier, was a 6th-round pick, so you never really know. I just don't get the feeling that he's going to be the guy, so I'm going to say hate it. Sticking with football, the New Orleans Saints, after the draft, signed Ohio State quarterback J.T. Barrett, who it seems like he was in Columbus for like 10 years. It felt that way. I think he redshirted 3 or 4 times, it felt like. But the Saints picking up Barrett. Love it or hate it?
I love it. That gives Barrett the opportunity to learn from one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time to pretty much hold the clipboard, and then when opportunity presents itself, here, go ahead and throw the football.
I agree. What do you think?
So just to be clear, they picked him up after the draft.
Correct.
I hate it. They should have traded up and got a quarterback earlier in the rounds, and so that would have somebody better.
I'm going to say love it, but I don't think he's going to play quarterback for the Saints. This is a guy who I compare him to Terrell Pryor, another quarterback who was at Ohio State, who is now a wide receiver. Actually did well with the Browns. Of course, my Redskins picked him up, and he wasn't very good, but that's neither here nor there. I can see J.T. Barrett being that same thing, where maybe they put him in some packages where he's like a wildcat kind of thing, where he takes the ball shotgun and runs with it, that sort of thing. Of course, we'll have to wait and see, but I think that's a good pickup for the Saints. Now, moving on to basketball. The Boston Celtics' Terry Rozier, who's been lighting it up since Kyrie's been gone in the playoffs, showed up for the first game between the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers wearing a Drew Bledsoe jersey. Now, the significance of this is obviously this past Super Bowl was a Philly team versus a Boston team, so it kind of seems like he's sticking it to him a little bit. Love it or hate it?
I love it because Rose coming there with a Drew Bledsoe jersey. It kind of puts you to bow before Tom Brady to heirs to the compared. Drew Bledsoe was there pretty much, but Rose is stepping it up, doing what he needs to do in order to keep Boston going.
Yeah, what do you think?
I'm going to say love it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say love it, too. I like when they do stuff like this, when they pick on each other, because it's like little subtle jabs, you know.
Yeah.
It's not really going to affect the game at all, but I think it's very creative.
Yeah, just for the fun. Just have a little fun while you're playing the game.
Absolutely.
If you get too serious, it's going to go...
Yeah, you're right. Moving on to hockey, another thing we don't talk about very much. The Carolina Hurricanes have continued to clean house. You know, they got rid of their coach. They still haven't replaced him yet. At this point, they have fired and terminated their president, Ron Francis, who was actually the general manager, just a few weeks ago, they said, we're going to move on from you from GM. We're going to bump you up to president. They still don't have a GM either, by the way. And now they decided to terminate his president contract. So cleaning house. What do you think? Love it or hate it for the Hurricanes?
I love it. If you rebuild a franchise, start from the ground up and work your way up. So, hey, if you want to win a Stanley Cup in the next few years down the road, you got to do what you got to do.
All right.
I'm saying love it. It seems like the players have got figured out without the need for management.
I'm going to say love it too. I mean, the Hurricanes kind of seem like they've been idling the last few years, same way the Hornets have.
Yeah.
And the same way the Hornets are doing. They're getting a new GM, or got a new GM in Kupchak. They're looking for a new coach. I think sometimes when things aren't working after a few seasons, it's time to break it down and start over. So I'm going to say love it. Going back to the NFL, the Jacksonville Jaguars owner in the future wants to see a Super Bowl in London. Love it or hate it?
I love it because I truly believe that's going to happen when you're going to have a Super Bowl overseas.
All right.
I'm going to say love it too. I like to see it come to international football.
Yes, I can truly see that.
Well, I'll tell you this. Wembley Stadium is a soccer stadium, and that's where they hold the football games when they have them in London.
Can you imagine the chants?
Yeah.
The chants going to be amazing.
Sierra and I were actually talking about this yesterday on Good Morning Sandhills. Wembley Stadium holds 90,000 people, which is a lot for a Super Bowl.
Stadiums.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I'm going to say hate it. Super Bowl is our sport. It's staying in America. Now, finally, going to end it on something funny. In the WWE, they had the greatest Royal Rumble pay-per-view over in Saudi Arabia. If you don't know what I'm talking about, as soon as I tell you, you need to YouTube it. Titus O'Neil was part of the Royal Rumble. He's running down to the ring, trips on something at some point in the ring, and slides all the way under the ring. All 6'6" or 7 of them, whatever it is. Again, if you haven't seen it, look it up. Love it or hate it.
I love it because it's funny because it probably was part of the entertainment process. Hey, everybody worked for Edge when he did it, when his interest with Edge and Christian. It don't work for him because he's a big dude.
Yeah.
Oops.
I'm going to say love it.
That's good. I'm going to say love it too. It's so funny to watch this. I just get a kick out of it, watching it over and over. And, you would think maybe after it happened that he would have tried to pretend like it didn't. But this past Monday night on Raw, he just went right along with it and actually helped No Way Jose defeat Baron Corbin, which it seems like maybe Baron and Titus might eventually start some kind of rivalry. But again, something that everybody needs to check out there, give you a good laugh for the week. But that's going to do it for this edition of the RO Sports Show. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. And if you want to continue to tune in, you can, of course, do that on the Richmond Observer's app, which you can get on your iPhone and Android devices. You can also find us on the RichmondObserver.com, Richmond Observer Facebook page, Richmond Observer YouTube page. You can also listen to us on the Classic Rock Radio. And guys, of course, it's always
free.
That's right. So once again, for Russell Parker, Jimmy McKenzie, I'm Matt Harrelson. We'll see you right back here again next week, Thursdays at 5:30. Have a great week.